Today I have with us a game designer from Legends of Runeterra. This is Dan, everybody. Chat, be nice and welcoming to our guest. And we're going to be talking about Path of Champions today. He works on Path of Champions, the design for it, and he's very excited to share with us some behind the scenes that he's done for the new upcoming monthly adventures. I think there's some people who don't quite know what that is, or even who you might be, Dan, if you would like to introduce yourself and to tell us a bit about what you're going to share with us today.
So, doing pretty well. My name is Dan Felder. I'm a designer on Legends of Runeterra. I'm currently design lead for features, and features includes Path of Champions. So we've been doing some really cool stuff, and we teased it on the roadmap a while ago, and now we're talking about what it really is. So the monthly challenge is this really exciting, or at least to me, I hope everybody else is excited about it too, feature coming to Path of Champions, because one of the things that we really wanted to do is when we were looking at player feedback, and of course we're just, we have longer term plans in general, and we adapt them to player feedback to figure out what the right priorities are, is that a lot of players who are the most dedicated fans of the mode, felt that the progression was kind of running out as they move forward with collecting new champions. So when you first start, the adventures, there's a lot of adventures to play, you focus only on getting a few champions really powerful, then kind of after you've played for a while, you start graduating to the harder world adventures, and eventually you fight Galio, and you can work towards Aurelian's Soul, and you tend to need one really good champion of every region, and that expands further. But many players have 30 plus champions, or they have every champion in the game at some progression of stars. And after a while, it starts to feel like, well, why do I have a second Piltover and Zon champion?
Yeah.
I already have Jinx, and she's objectively incredibly powerful and really fast and efficient. People were saying that they like the weekly challenges, which are the procedurally generated random adventures, but it really feels like there's never a reason not to use the same most powerful champions they have on all of them. So what we wanted to do was say, once you've kind of beaten Aurelian's Soul and done all that content, we wanted to create a mode that would celebrate your collection as a whole and not just focus on one champion at a time. So the idea was the monthly challenges was released with two major ideas in mind. One is we wanted to create a mode we can run experiments in and try a lot of new exciting stuff to see how players respond to it and to evolve it in different ways. But the core goal of it is to build a end game mode for those players who have already completed the other content in the game and are able to explore this wider whole collection at once concept. So we went through a lot of exploration, different ways to do that. And the way we settled on was this idea of every champion has a limited number of uses. So you can use Jinx 3 times in the mode to beat the various challenging adventures, but that's it. And it's 3 times win or lose. So one of the cool things is people were asking for harder content than Aurelian Soul. They've beaten them, but also that's already a really big difficulty spike. So what we feel is players really want a sense of additional tension and for their strategy to matter. So one of the elements there is that the monthly challenges with the limited uses that we noticed in playtesting, which were really exciting, and we felt that and we leaned into it, was that when players when losing kind of matters, it's not just wasting your time for an hour of time to run it again.
Yeah.
Then every sort of decision feels more impactful, every element of the turn-to-turn structure feels more impactful, and that was a really fun thing to complement the weekly challenge runs you're also doing. So this mode doesn't exist to replace anything. It's supposed to expand the game for people that like this idea of wide roster strategy. So that's the goal behind it. And we also have a sneak peek of not only the behind the scenes stuff we use to get there, but also what the mode looks like in practice and how it's going to play if you want to see it.
I would love to, and I think chat would like to get that little sneak peek as well. This is kind of how you guys came across making this challenge and some sneak peeks at the challenge, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to just dive in.
Okay.
And we're circling through. So one of these first things here is this whiteboard. This is something that we built months ago. It's one of the first big whiteboards when we had kind of started aligning on the goals of the feature. And there's always a lot of goals, and you can see on the left-hand side what some of those look like. We've got our design goals here that are stuff talking about we want to make sure losing has consequences, so that way we can expand the challenge of content. And we want to focus on go wide to go tall, which is basically this idea of rather than just trying to make one champion more and more powerful, suddenly all your champions matter. And it's a really cool system when that works well. At least it has been other games when I've tried it, and I liked it a lot when we were playtesting it, because suddenly, like, if we want to make you feel smart about getting another champion, we don't have to power creep it to do that. Like, all your champions matter in this mode, and it's about figuring out which champion to use on which challenge to be most efficiently. Like, Jinx gets to sit on your shelf and be like a nuclear missile that you use to blow up a few very big problems. But there's also your one-star champions matter, or the champions that you might think of as weaker that we intend to be like challenging champions for the most veteran players to really enjoy like deep interaction. Like Thresh was released partly to give players, a more interactive deck that doesn't just sort of play itself. And those champions might be like not as easy to win with for all players, but they still matter in this mode, and you still feel smart for getting them. So every champion gets to matter is the idea. Okay. You also see some early wireframes here. I also like the UX goals. Player first is goal 0 and goal 1. We say that a lot at Riot, that if player first isn't like on the design goal sheet, or like, we just take that really seriously. Like, we want to always remember that if we're making decisions, it's got to be for the focus on the players. And you can see some like of the various optional like really early wireframes, trying to get the hierarchy of the visuals done well, exploring options, and like we've got a lot of whiteboards like this at Riot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice little sneak peek at it.
So from there, we usually go to something like big sheets. This is one of like 60 that happens, and this is a breakdown of, okay, now that we know what we want to do with the mode, in that whiteboard meeting, we like aligned on the idea of multiple uses for champions in order to create lots of adventures that players would like navigate in a linear column, because it fit well with the adventure journal that players were already using largely to navigate the mode, so it made sense to players, so we wanted to reuse it. And once we had that UI, we wanted to make sure that it made sense for navigation. So this is just a little fraction. You can kind of maybe even see it goes off the screen a little bit of the type of tracking all the different interactions, how players go to screens, and from there that gets turned into like early wireframes. This was just like originally a quick screenshot of the game. We put it in grayscale to remind everybody this isn't done yet. Nobody really thinks that a color image is done for some reason, so it's often a cheat that I was taught to like make sure people don't get confused that it's not finished. Yeah. And you can see this big, terrible box that says monthly challenge! So what I liked about this also is this kind of slide shows a lot of the weird thoughts that go into game development people might not be thinking. Like this box I'm writing over here. Mode must be prominent, yet not part of the world. And that really implies a lot about how we do the signage. We have a lot of underlying things like that. The reason for that box was because we wanted to make it clear that this mode followed its own special rules. Like the 3 limited uses, the mode's very different, it works in different ways. So we didn't want it to feel like another button, because if you see a button that looks like the existing buttons on the world map, you kind of assume intuitively it follows the same logic of that, even though there's maybe no reason to assume that. Humans are going to human. So we wanted to find a exciting call to action, but it felt like it was like not connected to the world directly in the same way the existing buttons did.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. So you'll just click there to go into your monthly challenge.
Regionally, yes. So this evolves, and I'll show you the final ones, but here's some of the early things. So then what happens, most comments get resolved as we're going through, but some live out. Yeah. So these were still internally in the document when we was going through. And so this is sort of what the landing page originally, the wireframe was looking at. We said like left side, just big thing about, hello scientist, I'm here to give my experiment. Heimerdinger's gonna Heimerdinger. We've got our leaderboard, time remaining, and then like this is just a screenshot of the existing weekly adventures, and this is how we can like quickly cobble together like, so guys, largely speaking, this is kind of what we're thinking of building. Does this make sense to you? And so we have like a lot of meetings and discussions, iterations. This helps align. We just do a lot of hacky slapping stuff together because early on, the goal is to iterate and get to alignment quickly, not to make it look pretty, because no one ever sees it until I mess that up by showing you guys this. You can still see some on the side, like talking about trying to make it really clear this is an experimental mode. We're trying stuff out, and you're seeing we're doing a lot of new different things in here. And I'm excited to see how players react to it so that we can explore and expand further.
Yeah.
So then this is sort of like what the wireframes on Champ Select started to look like. And a lot of thought went into this because one of my big feelings about how UX works is I like to bring UI really early into the design. A lot of designers kind of just do the design and then at the end ask a UI designer or UX designer to try to make sense of it. And often I feel that UI kind of determines called user experience for a reason. And if we want to be player first, we want to make sure that it works at a glance and it makes sense to players really early on. And so one of the elements here is like, again, this is like a hacked up version of the collection screen you've seen. But we wanted to make sure this made sense to people early. And we didn't want people to have to constantly leave the mode, switch champions, come back in. So this way, the flow changes. You get to pick the adventure you want to do and then pick the champion you want to do for that adventure. So which saves people a lot of circling back to the previous swap champions mode.
That's really nice.
Also, it's really nice. I'm glad because that was very exciting. So we are confusing. Interesting to see if it is because we changed the sorting. One of the major things is because champions are limited uses. Normally, the default is you want to use your best champion to be like a weekly adventure because it's easier. But in this mode, people kind of want to use their weaker champions first, and then once they've like all lost, you have more information about the adventures they lost to, or you've beaten easier adventures. So we actually flipped the ordering from your weakest champions that you've unlocked that still have uses to your strongest champions. So that way you kind of can stay at the top and not keep scrolling down repeatedly. And like that's something that I'm really excited that we got in. It's a little disconcerting for me at first, so I'm wondering if maybe it's just a little too clever, but it's been very helpful, I think, for people to sort of remember, oh, this is not my roster screen, and this has different priorities. So it's a lot of little discussions like that go into these types of features. Preferably nobody notices it by the end. But anyway, that's sort of like the wireframes I wanted to show. Do you want to see what it looked like as of yesterday internally?
I would love to.
Cool. Feel free to pause me, ask any questions you want. I didn't prep a presentation. I'm just walking through the slides.
No, you're fine.
Cool. So, right now, and maybe it'll look a little bit different by the time you see it, but that's sort of the point, is this is sort of what it looks like. We slap a button called Beta Monthly Challenge on the screen. Eventually this will be Monthly Challenge, but we wanted to really emphasize that this is not a finished version of the feature. We wanted to bring the community in early to help us develop the finished version of the feature. Like in the past, often we've done a lot of like longer delays before releasing stuff, wanting to get it really polished and perfect. But there's two reasons we wanted to do this first. One, we want to get more player feedback in driving these large features, and we'd rather show you stuff early rather than wait till things are perfect, so you can help make them perfect. And the other thing is like, because it's a whole month of content, there's so much to test and it's so procedural that we really want to see how the whole community handles it, to see how this should evolve as it goes on. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. Anyway, you're going to click on the Beta Monthly Challenge and you're going to jump in, and it's going to look kind of like this. So in the future, we might evolve like any number of things to make this look prettier, but already I think it looks pretty cool. And so you've got this text that from Professor Cecil B. Heimerdinger, if you didn't know his name. And it says, warning, each champion can only be used 3 times per month. We want to make that really clear. So it's really clear in a lot of places, but we didn't want anyone to split up the wrong way. And hello, fellow scientist. I hope you're up for a challenge. I discovered an unstable portal that leads to dozens of different locations. I'd investigated it myself, but I've discovered that a single individual using the portal too often is, well, remarkably dangerous. Only a team of experienced adventurers could hope to fully explore it. May I ask your assistance in evaluating this phenomenon? I'll even track your progress. So the goal behind this text is basically to say, like, hey, look, mode is about your personal best. Well, that's why we track total wins as the most important thing. And eventually there will be rewards that reward you for, like, beating X number of adventures. It's not expected that you beat the whole thing. In fact, if everybody starts beating the whole thing, we're going to make it harder. The point is to be a aspiring mountain for players to climb to. And then for players that can beat the whole thing, that's where the leaderboard comes in. We're focusing on like the most exciting, high tier, like people that can like go the furthest. We still want them to have something to aspire to so they can test against each other. This is like not about the leaderboard. In fact, there was some internal like discussion about putting a leaderboard in, making people feel like this is driving the mode. But ultimately, like we wanted to put it in for the players that like actively wanted to care about it without making you care about it.
Mhm.
So this is mostly should be about your personal best and evolving. It's testing your specific collection. But if you happen to be at the very end, you can see how you stack up against other players. So it starts with 3 challenges unlocked, and then every time you beat the 3rd one, it unlocks 3 more. So beating 1 and 2 doesn't do anything other than get you points for the leaderboard, and eventually would like lead into rewards and so on. But beating challenge 3 lets you unlock 6, 7, and 8. Sorry, those are not how numbers work. 4, 5, and 6. I give numbers. And so the reason we did that was because one of the pieces of feedback we got when we were playtesting was that some players wanted to jump to really hard challenges quickly. So rather than just being like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, like we wanted to give players that had just unlocked the mode some easier adventures, but let players that wanted to jump to really hard stuff beat like challenge 3, challenge 6, challenge 9, and we weave in like a small number of 1-star adventures, and mostly designed to just kind of let people wet their toes in the mode, but we get to hard stuff quickly. Like over half of the adventures, I think right now, we've tuned and we've explored, so things might be different by the time you get to it, but certainly around that are 3-star plus for this challenge. And it's designed to be evolving, challenging the deepest, furthest players of the roster. This mode doesn't unlock until Legend level 15, and when it does, you're really not ready to go that deep in it. You're going to get your toe dipped in it to help you realize this is a long-term cool goal, and they'll have content you can play, but it's really aimed at people that are at like Legend level 30, deep rosters. We want to give them something to do because they're underserved. We want everybody in our game to have something that's really catering to their place in the game.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. Any quick questions?
So when you're looking in this, can you see the future challenges, or can you only see the 3 that you've unlocked? Like, so you can try to plan out your
see
friends.
all the challenges.
Okay.
All challenges. You can see which challenge unlocks them, and you can also see what mutators they have and so on. In fact, this mode has a very interesting way of doing mutators. It's less present on the very first ones because we wanted to make sure that things were a bit easier for like players that were just unlocking the mode and getting their feet wet. But quickly it evolves to a format in which, while a lot of the mutators are the same as you'll see in weekly challenges, the weekly adventures, the mutators are done in a different way. It's much more a like mixture of build around mutator in one slot, and then make the encounter harder mutator in the other. So some of the build around mutators might be very player friendly, like ones you've seen before, like your first Shurima card costs 1 less, or your spells are doubled. But often they'll be global, like both players have this effect. And the goal of the first mutator is primarily to be something interesting that changes which champion you should bring to this adventure. Because what we really want for the macro level of strategy, to make this into like a resource management game, make you feel more like a general than just an individual hero, is the idea of picking the right champion for the right encounter. So one of the mutator slots is designed to make that a really impactful decision. And the other mutator slot is designed to make the opponent more challenging. So looking ahead and planning is going to be helpful. It's worth noting, though, that if you try to plan the whole month right away, RNG is going to mess with you. You should kind of just focus on your weaker champions first. There's no downside, mostly, to using like your weaker champions early. Clear out what you can, and then open opportunities as you go. Don't try to fully plan the month. It'll backfire.
Okay, so kind of leading off to what you should play first and second, should players who have some leftover fragments and such, should they work on unlocking more champs, in your opinion, or getting that 3-star to finish out more tough runs, in your opinion, to help them along in the path?
Mm-hmm. Depends what you have. If you already have a lot of 2- and 1-star champions, get some to 3 stars. There are some really hard encounters in here. You're gonna need those nuclear weapons to like solve those big problems. If you already have a lot of 3-star champions, you're gonna need breadth, because a champion at 0 stars can still do 3 adventures or 3 attempts. They might only have a very small chance of winning, but they might get lucky. Now, it's worth noting, is what I'm going to show you, because I'm going to show you the adventure structures we're dealing with. There are not many mutators during, there are not many powers or upgrades during the run. There's a few, but you can't just get lucky and roll legendary power. That's actively impossible right now.
Okay.
The purpose of this is to, in the normal adventure mode, the way that we described it internally when we were discussing this is you pick the champion, and then you pick a random power that works with that champion. In this mode, you see the mutator, and then you pick a champion that works with that mutator. So you know exactly what you're getting.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm going to show you a bit more. Now, let's say I'm tapping on Ash. Now, We see the screen. It looks, as you can see, remarkably similar.
Yeah.
And yes, oh gosh, I'm seeing that our community person's really concerned. Ash has been added to the Path of Champions. That's a leak. I'm sorry. But basically, you can see we got the choose your champion. We still got our mixes. We use uses switch to runs as we evolve the terminology based on feedback. You pick the one you want to move, and then you can look at the special rules, of course. This is an early one, so there isn't one that's as harsh against you. They're just two sort of from the build around pool. This one is all spells and skills deal 1 extra damage, and when you level up a champion, all players discard their hand. So if you're looking at this, you might want to be looking at something like maybe Annie, who's very skill damage oriented, or you might be looking at Misfortune, because they're both low to the ground and easy to get stuff out. Jinx, of course, has discard synergy, but I wouldn't want to use her on a 1-star. And then mostly I'm focusing on, like, how do I exploit this to do as much damage as possible? And as you can see, my Annie is already on the screen. She's 0 stars right now. It might be good to take her out for a spin and at least learn more about this adventure, or get the build around, and maybe she'll actually beat it, which is great. As you can see, we actually have 2 adventure structures I'm going to show you. They're the same 2 right now. I want to do more in the future, but they're very small micros to explore, like, what we think it's going to look like. So this is the first one. There's 2 formats. We put them on different backgrounds. And this one has a single fight and a few small amount of upgrades on the way to that fight. You take a character, and you would get a. This is not the Ash one. We'll go back to that one in a second. I just wanted to show you both structures.
Okay.
So you get your support champion, and then you can choose: do I want Path A or Path B? There's a mixture of different upgrades of like champ item, normal item, spell chest, or an event from a pool of events that I thought were interesting and powerful enough to be worth taking. So that event's usually going to be kind of the wild card. But if you don't want to do one of those events, then you can go to the other path and you get like 2 small upgrades. So you get support champion, 2 small but impactful upgrades, and then you fight the boss directly. This also makes one thing I'm interested in is finding out like how hard people think these actually are, because doing a 1-star adventure, when you only have a few upgrades before the boss, what we think is 1-star, you might not think is 1-star. We might also ultimately change the difficulty evaluation based on what players' feedback is, because usually adventures are marathons. You're not usually going to lose too early in the adventure unless you get really unlucky. It's about, can you build a really powerful deck and synergy before you fight the boss? You can imagine if you had to fight Aurelian Soul before any upgrades, that would go usually quite poorly. So we did a lot of stuff to try to explore and test what we thought the right balancing for 1-star is, for 2-star, and so on. But your mileage may vary. It's possible players might think that like what we call a 4-star encounter is actually easier than a normal like 2.5-star adventure. That's possible. You might consider it's much harder than Aurelian Soul. That's also possible. It's also going to vary a lot because different bosses, different mutators. And one reason I'm really interested as we evolve is to see like, is this too easy right now? Is it too hard right now? Should we ultimately create more difficulty tiers for different player types? There's lots of opportunities, and there's lots of stuff we're experimenting with. So we set up that, and then this is the second structure, which actually works a little bit differently. It's got 2 bosses, though you don't heal between them, which is why you have to choose you have a healing node. And it's also, instead of having like 2 branches of small upgrades, it has a shop that's like a new version of the shop designed for this mode. Works the same way, largely, but it has a few things that are designed to give people like a bunch of quick upfront customization. So should we dive into that, or any other questions about the structure first?
Let's go dive into that.
Cool. So here's the new shop. It looks like the old shop, but there's a few changes. One, we significantly increased the likelihood that you will see stuff from your character's synergistic pool. Like, the way the normal shops work is there's a large pool of things that work for kind of all the champions, like various cards you'll see in kind of every run. And then there's a small number of cards from your champion's curated list. Because you see so many shops in a normal adventure or set of adventures that if you saw them all from your curated list all the time, they might be too samey. But those are the cards that are usually more interesting and synergistic for your character. Here we don't have that problem. we have a smaller pool, so we can provide stuff that's more likely to be synergistic with you and more customized to your character. You get a big burst of gold, you can spend it to buy some stuff. Also, we increased the value of the items on the carts, because one of the pieces of feedback we got from players was often they feel like the items they see in shops aren't interesting, they aren't better than the average card in their deck. and they just buy the power every time. So we increased the value of the items in these shops and decreased the cost. So you'll be able to buy them much more affordably. And you might notice that there's no power tab in this shop. Instead, it says buy items. So instead of just, I actually don't have the screen for it, but basically it just looks like the 3 cards that are already in your deck, getting an item for them. Also, the cost is like much more expensive because usually those are cards that already are really good in your deck. And you can choose between like buying some new cards from your deck to really encourage you to feel good about doing that, or upgrading some of the cards in your existing deck. But it's not a situation of, here's a bunch of cards, I should always just buy the power, whatever the power is, which a lot of people felt like that's how the normal shops often feel. Yeah. This is designed to be like a quick burst of customization. Before you go back and do your big fight, then you get like 1 additional upgrade or a heal or a card cut, and then you do the second fight.
Okay.
Cool. And the last thing is 70 challenges. So I just scrolled to the bottom and it says challenge 70 really faintly. But anyway, so these are all really short, as you can see. They're designed, and they're only 1 or 2 battles each, and they're designed to kind of keep people going for a month. So there's no, I really want to emphasize right now, there's no, you need to play this many number a month. There's actually no reward for playing them at all right now, other than the ability to give us feedback, and if you care about chasing the leaderboard, your own personal bests. Same with badges on adventures. There will be eventually, but first we want to see how people engage with the mode, what they like, what they want to do more of. We want to make it feel valuable. So I also really like about that short form content is I don't believe there's one perfect form of content. I don't believe that there's one like platonic version of food that's the best for all situations. Like sometimes I want sushi, sometimes I want a burger. So the purpose of this is to create this larger strategic feel of the game that is short form that you can that can fit into like a bus stop, effectively. And then that should complement the weekly adventures. The weekly adventures will still have rewards, and the goal is to make elder game players, which is what I often call people that are like, I don't believe in an end game. We're going to keep going, so elder game is often what I use. Those players still have a lot of really exciting things to do the weekly challenges for. They should still be getting champions, playing full form adventures. They should still be like challenging Aurelian Soul and trying out the whole loop. That's like the meat and potatoes of getting new champions. But once you get them, they don't just sort of sit in your roster forever. You keep breaking them out in this shorter form mode to fit into your schedule. So I'm really excited as we evolve the Path of Champions mode to be doing these types of experiments. I hope they work, because I want to be giving players more ways to play the game and feeling like it caters to their schedule better, and it enriches the game in different ways.
For sure.
So that's all I got for you on the slides.
I really like that you guys are bringing us in early on this and giving us a chance to play through it and give you guys our feedback on that. I really think that's a very nice firsthand approach that we can actually test it out with you guys.
I'm really excited. You can bet I'll be reading all the Reddit comments and the feedback that we get on the channels too.
I did have a couple of questions to ask you concerning certain things. You did mention that this is for like higher level, like the level, I don't even know what it's called. Your overall level for Path. So right now it's capped at 30. Is there any plans to extend that or be higher than that in the future?
No short-term plans. It is something that obviously players want, and that makes sense. One of the things that is I really like to wait until there's a really strong need for a thing to pair it with a feature release or something. So just extending the legend level cap is something that I'd rather make as impactful as possible, and also give players who are newer to the game time to catch up if there's no reason to extend it. Because every time we spend a lot of energy extending every existing system, that's time we don't spend on something like the monthly challenge. So we can do a lot of stuff like that, but in the short term, it kind of just means that if we extend every system, even if there isn't really anything really exciting to tie to it yet, that ultimately ends up delaying our ability to expand the game in other ways. So I think that obviously, it's possible some form of level cap is correct, but people have been often at 30 for quite a while. Eventually, I do want to extend it, but it's not in the short term.
Okay. given that this is coming out with the new expansion and we're getting some new champions, then can we expect to see any of the new champions in Path?
Which one do you want specifically?
I'm sorry, what? Just...
I'll let you pick one. Pick one, we'll
one.
put it in. Of the new champions that we're releasing, Samira, Jack, Set, which one do you want?
Set.
They're in. All three are in. So anyway.
Why you have to put so much stress on that?
I'm sorry, but it was just too... Not often do I get to grant a wish.
Oh, gosh. You got me. You got me good there. My heart is pounding.
Excellent.
Oh, God. So we can expect to see all of them in there.
All three, yes. I saw a Reddit comment the other night saying, like, you know, like, don't get your hopes up for, like, the Jack being in. And I'm like, so this is great. I'm going to upload this. Yeah, we're doing all three, and it's... one of the things that's really nice is that the more we have the champions content we make, the better we get at it. So it's becoming more and more, we're finding new ways to use the systems, we're finding new ways to get stuff in and exciting. We want like champions to be in Path of Champions. We don't want to hold anything necessarily. So we're just noticing that people are playing the mode, they're really liking the mode, people who play PvP are also playing it, and people are supporting the mode, not just with their time, but also they're buying the event passes and stuff. Like, and they keep posting, guys, I'm buying the event pass to show you I care. Please do more. And we're like, of course. We're going to want to support what people like and enjoy as long as they like and enjoy it. So even though the majority of our focus is still on PvP, like almost all of our design resources right now, like we said we were focusing on the pivot, are aimed at PvP. But PvP takes a lot of resources to do well. We want to have a world-class card game, and outsmarting the whole community is really, really hard to do in terms of deck building. So it takes a lot of resources and time. We want to deliver really great gameplay loops that are meaningfully interesting and original. We want to build cool tech for it. It takes a lot of resources. But we're still doing Path because we notice that players really, really like it. It helps that a lot of people on the team also like it. And we want to be building that out going forward. So I get a lot of questions about that, about like, you know, you're doing this huge thing, but like, aren't you focusing on PvP? It's like, guys, just because this is cool doesn't mean we're not also putting a lot of energy into PvP. It's going to be a really cool game overall.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I know when I was talking to my stream about this yesterday, a lot of people were very curious kind of about the future and what you guys have planned. And one of the main questions I received was whether or not there are any plans for some cooperative Path of Champions game mode that we can play with our friends.
So for Path, it's worth noting that like one of the reasons when we do something that's more agile, like releasing monthly challenges in the community, is because we want to be building what players like, what they're asking for, what they're exploring. So we don't have like super long-term definite plans for Path of Champions because we're planning to be agile and evolve it with how the community what they respond to and what the game needs in the given moment. So could we see more like something co-op in Path of Champions in the future? Absolutely on the table. Like there's a huge list of cool ideas we want to like explore or do prototypes for at some point. And that's one of them. That's going to be my answer for most things people ask about, by the way.
Okay.
Because like we have a lot of different things that we would love to do eventually when it makes sense to do it. So like generally speaking, I can't confirm or deny like anything like super down the roadmap. But as what players are excited about, and if we can find a good way to do it that we think is like world class, we don't want to do like an imperfect version that we're just going to kind of let rot. Like we want to make sure that if we see the excitement, the potential, that we're going to go in directions like that. So how people experience Path and how they play it, how they play the monthly challenge, it'll be evolving. And if people are really passionate about that, we'll probably be looking in those directions.
Gotcha. So this might catch the same answer then, but we were also curious if there is any plans or even in the works or thoughts about being able to change like the base deck of the Path run. So before you even start the run, can I change out one of the cards that I'm going into the run with?
So it's largely the same answer, but I can give some extra context because this comes up a lot. And it comes up a lot internally as well. So one of the interesting things about Path up to the point of the monthly challenge has been, the whole theme of Path has been, you build the deck and the powers as you play the adventure. Relics are supposed to give you some light customization up front, but mostly the purpose is to evolve the deck as you're playing the adventure. If people really like short form monthly challenge stuff, in which you're supposed to do most of your building before you play the adventure, because it's based on like picking the right champion for the thing, that expands the opportunity to do things like explore more customization before the run. Because if you do a lot of customization before the run in a really big normal adventure, the problem is the more control we give you, the worse the rewards during that run usually are. There's often a very interesting thing where we're balancing and designing champions to say, we want to make the starting deck exciting. We want the rewards in the run to be more exciting. So this card would be perfect for this champion. Do we want to make that an adventure reward so that if you see that card, you're really excited? Or do we want to make that like part of the core deck? And there's all very interesting questions that go into a mode like this. We're supposed to evolve during play versus pre-building it for maximum fun, and we try different experiments. So if people really respond well to the monthly challenge and they want more short-form content, suddenly we're not like, for the more advanced players, it might make a lot of sense to give people more and more opportunities to customize before they play short matches, if that's how that game evolves into. People don't like short-form adventures, we might stick more towards evolving during the run. So I can't confirm or deny any specific feature, but this is the type of thing that we're thinking about when we're asking ourselves these questions.
I see. Okay, thank you for that insight. And then just like a little fun spin-off question. We were curious as to what your favorite champion is for Path and that you think everyone else is sleeping on it. Like, you're just like, this is good. Why is nobody playing this one?
So I think I have two answers for this. One is my favorite, and then the one is that everyone is sleeping on. I'm not sure if people actually are sleeping on any of these because the community has a lot of insight. I'll give you three quick answers of different flavors of this. One, my favorite champion just to play is Echo. Echo is crazy fun, and the powers look really simple. And most people, I think, don't focus on Echo because they're like, "Oh, I already have Jinx. I don't need another Piltover champion." And I get that, but oh my god, you're missing out. It's so fun. Like, I've stayed up the first time I started starring up Echo. I stayed up till like 3 a.m. Before a big meeting just playing it because like. Just all those powers are just created cards cost one less. There are so many things during Path that let you exploit that. There are so many powers that add special cards to your hand. Celestials work. And of course a lot of stuff in his deck works too. And then when you see followers in a predict or units in a predict, they get +2/+2. The one you chose gets that. The ones you didn't choose and you keep seeing get that. Like, there's so many ways that those two simple powers can just let you do hilariously silly things, and they work well with copying and the stacking items on things. It's just so much fun. So I love him, and I think he's really powerful. And with this mode, I actually started working on my Echo because I'm like, okay, now I have to get him really strong because I'm going to want another really powerful thing. I think Yasuo gets overlooked a lot from the starting champions, possibly because he's compared to like Jinx and Lux, who are really strong too. I think 3-star Yasuo is one of the strongest champions. Like. Stunning is unbelievably powerful in Path. I put Everfrost, the common item that just stuns a thing when you summon it. That's like my default common item. Like, so many problematic powers or Aurelian Soul things where they have one really giant unit, like a 32/32 or something. Stun it. Not a problem. Yasuo auto stuns every round. The biggest unit they have is not attacking you. And then you put like the Tempest Blade on him and he just gets to just win the game. Tip for Yasuo. Most people focus on trying to exploit Yasuo. Until you have the Tempest Blade, you exploit Fae Blade Twirler. They're the secret champion. Get it on the board, keep it alive, you get to win the game for free. Once you know that, the champion becomes broken. If you try to, like, I don't even play Yasuo early on until he has like Tempest Blade. Just Fae Blade Twirler and the stuns win me the game. Last one I want to signpost is I really love 3-star Thresh. Thresh was designed to be kind of a puzzle, like really an open-ended puzzle that he doesn't have a win condition built into his deck in a very obvious way. It was designed to be as fun as possible for more advanced players, make you really excited to see cool support champions, make you really excited to see different cards that he could put into. A lot of the best cards for his deck are in his pool, but aren't in the deck itself. Some players just look at the deck and think it's not that big a deal. And also, they kind of don't realize that a lot of the item upgrades that give like keywords to his abilities, to his units, that they don't seem like very impactful item upgrades. Once you have the 3rd-star power, whenever your unit dies, it shares all its keywords. So if you get lifesteal on a unit, you get spell shield on a unit, you're just going to keep tossing these things back and forth and just get to, you might take damage early, but then you're going to heal it back. You might, fall behind on board early, but then you're going to just keep generating insane value. And you can do hilarious stuff, especially with the relic that I highly recommend. As people don't think about it too much, that I've seen. Maybe you guys do. But there's a relic that says, I forget what it's called. We've called so many star things different things. But it shuffles a random champion into your deck at the start of the adventure, and it gives it like an epic item. You can use that to be like your main champion when playing Thresh, and then Thresh cheats it out. So Thresh is more of a support enabler, just like he is in League. He's a playmaker. He's not the killer himself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. I just wanted to quickly say, first off, thank you to you and the team. We can really see that you have a lot of passion and care deeply for this, and it's just really nice to be able to sit down and have this conversation with you about the game. And thank you for the opportunity to allow me to interview you for this. I don't think I have any further questions. A lot of fun.
Cool. Well, but if you don't, I have to go back to work then. And all I get to do is like make him play games. Wait, that's fine.
Yeah, no, you gave us a bunch of information, even some that's not completely regarding to the monthly challenges, even though that's like a very nice little behind the scenes we got to see today. And I think that's all I have for you. I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I like this one too.
Chat, say bye, say thanks. Yeah. Any last remarks for you have?
I just want to say thanks for playing our game. Like I'm actually one of the new. I get a lot of like attention on Reddit and stuff because I post there a lot and I'm pretty public. But I just want to say that I'm one of the newer designers to the team. Like I joined the team because my friends got me into lore, and I wanted to keep thinking about it all the time. So I tricked them into hiring me. And I just want to say like. This is just a wonderful game. It's an incredible team. We have so many people that make this game what it is. And like one of the reasons I like it so much is that we have a really great community, like especially compared to other card games and other games in general I've worked on. Like people deeply love the game. They're deeply passionate about it. I keep getting people who are like talking about like when they get into the community for the first time, how like really supportive a lot of people are and how they get tips and explore it. And I just want to say everybody, thank you for helping our players that way too. I really appreciate when people are positive, when people are receptive and welcoming and are willing to explore, like to help new players and explain things. Like not every community is like that, and we really appreciate you doing it.
You're gonna make me cry over here. I think we all really appreciate you and the team as well. Thank you again for setting this up and sharing some information with us. And I guess we're going to see you on Twitter and in the Reddit threads later on.
Absolutely. Memeing randomly. Have a good one.